The other day I was cleaning out stuff in the attic when I found this. This is not my first foray into trying it out. Last time I tried it was about 9 years ago, when I figured there was something wrong with it, because the radio and the clock would barely work, and the TV wouldn't work at all. It would shut off and make the radio stop working too. But I had a sudden realization when I looked at it again now and noticed it has a 12-volt DC input in addition to the built-in AC power supply. Maybe using an external power adapter would work better? I never tried it, so I had to. Getting this TV to work was easy but not straightforward. But first I'll show you what it looks like. We have the screen over here, of course, the display for the digital alarm clock, buttons to set the time and alarm. It has a TV and radio tuner, and various switches to set the brightness of the display, TV band, TV or radio, AM or FM for the radio, power and volume. At the top it has a snooze button. Well, it's not really a button, it's capacitive. You don't press it, you just touch it. Over here we have tuning knobs for the radio and the TV. There's the speaker and a headphone jack. On the back there's the DC input. It says CC because that's in Italian, corrente continua. Stickers for serial number and quality approved. But if the sticker ever said anything else, it's totally unreadable now. External antenna jack, and just a warning. There's also the antenna here on the back. And on this side we have controls for vertical hold, contrast, brightness and color. And on the top there's also a carrying handle. The brand name is Geloso, but I think this was probably sold under different brands in different countries too, as evidenced by the English writing with Italian stickers near it. There's more stuff at the bottom. This might be a date of manufacture, June 26, 1985. It may be difficult to read, but it says, caution, risk of electric shock, do not open, do not expose to rain or moisture. Serviceman caution, see warning notice on the inside of back cover. Complies with DHHS Radiation Performance Standards 21 CFR Subchapter J. And here's the information sticker in Italian. And despite this sticker, you should not eat 6.8 kilovolts, or any amount of volts. It's powered by 220 volts AC, 50 Hz, or 12 volts DC. Maximum consumption 30 watt hours. Some other stuff about the various frequencies. And over here on the bottom, there's also a space to put in a 9-volt battery. I tried putting a 9-volt battery in here without plugging this device in, and it didn't do anything. So it's just to keep the time in case of a power outage. This is a bit more sophisticated than other little CRT TVs like this one, like what you may have seen in V Westlife's video. This one is from the early 2000s and only black and white, while this one from the 1980s is in color, as you can tell by the indicator here. So we want to power this thing from the 12-volt DC input, instead of plugging it directly to the wall. That DC input was probably designed for a 12-volt battery, since this is a portable device, but I'm going to use a power supply instead. 12-volt power supplies are common, however their polarity is usually with the center pin positive, while this device needs the opposite. Connecting a power supply with wrong polarity would likely destroy this device. But I already had to deal with a center negative plug last year using this Amazon power supply with invertible tip. So that's what I tried first. And it worked. But after about 5 minutes of use, it shut off again and wouldn't turn back on. This power supply only puts out 1 amp when set to 12 volts, so maybe it wasn't enough. I also noticed it was very hot, so I thought it fried it. I connected it to something else and thankfully it wasn't fried, but this must mean this TV needs something beefier. I dug around my box of components and found this 12-volt power supply that puts out 3.5 amps. It should be enough assuming this marking is true. Even the connector appears to be the right size. However, it's center positive. So I had to invert the polarity by cutting the cable and reconnecting the wires the other way around. I don't have much experience with soldering, so I did a terrible job at it. You don't want to see what's under this electrical tape. Of course I didn't use heat shrink tube, I don't have any. But it does make a connection. This plug fits, but not very well. It needs to be held at a certain angle. But now it works. So that must mean the included power supply was the problem. Its AC power cord is permanently attached, a trend that still continues with some computer monitors these days. But even though it's not needed anymore, I'm not going to cut it off. One important thing is that the clock doesn't light up. Maybe it doesn't work when using the DC input to save power in case you're using a battery. However, I'm not going to try plugging it into the wall again. We're not missing out on much. It's a standard digital alarm clock with red display. The radio has AM and FM, but it's only mono. In fact, this thing is also mono from the headphone jack. If you plug in stereo headphones or speakers, audio only comes out of the left channel. This TV doesn't have an AV input, but it does have an external antenna jack. You need one of these adapters for the antenna cable. The one I have actually came with my little black and white TV. I don't have any old computers or video game consoles with an RF output, but I have a VCR. This one is from the early 2000s. We can plug in something to this Kart input, in this case just a composite video source and stereo audio. And then plug in an antenna cable to the RF output. Then this end of the antenna cable with the adapter can go to the little TV. Now that it's connected, we can watch the VCR's RF output on UHF channel 36. Of course, I could use the VCR for playing tapes, but right now it's only being used to convert the video and audio signals. And if the CRT whine noise bothers you too much, I'm sorry about that. I can hear it, but I grew up with CRTs, so it doesn't annoy me. After a few seconds, I just get used to it. But many young people really can't stand it. And here's the Raspberry Pi command line interface, going from composite to RF to this TV. Not very readable, but what do you expect? So here's a little test with the Nintendo Wii video game console. I set it to output 576i at 50 Hz, which is the PAL standard that we use here. And this is why I'm filming this video at 50 frames per second.